Hello, my name is Patricia. Currently, I live in a small annex attached to my in-laws' home with my husband Willie. While I occupy the annex alone, Willie resides in the main house with his parents. This annex, originally a mod project by Willie's grandfather intended as a personal retreat, has been transformed into a livable space roughly the size of a standard room, thanks to my efforts. For the first 4 years of our marriage, we lived in a regular apartment. However, Willie's parents, who are very fond of him, unexpectedly expressed a desire for him to return home. Moved by his sense of duty and their emotional display, complete with tears and hugs, Willie decided to move back in with them. I was taken aback and overwhelmed by their heartfelt reunion. Willie and I met at work, where he began as my subordinate. After dating for 4 years while he lived at his parents' home, his nostalgia for his childhood home seemed to deepen. Despite our marriage and him living independently, his upbringing, marked by considerable pampering and little involvement in household tasks, drew him back to the comfort of his parental home. When I suggested sharing household chores, Willie was hesitant and admitted he had never been involved in such tasks before. Despite my hopes for an equal division of responsibilities, he consistently avoided them, claiming, "Patricia, you're better at it. You should just keep doing it." Although we both worked full-time, my higher position made me feel a stronger urge to distribute domestic duties. Yet trying to involve Willie often proved more exhausting than handling everything myself. Eventually, I found it simpler to manage the tasks on my own. The dynamic shifted when I began working remotely. Initially, Willie seemed surprised to see me at home every day and appeared to adjust to the new arrangement. However, it became clear over time that he hadn't fully grasped what working from home entailed. A few years into my remote work, Willie's parents made an unexpected visit to our apartment, expressing a desire to live closer to him. Witnessing their emotional reunion left me feeling isolated and confused. Respecting Willie's wish to be closer to his parents, we decided to move into their home. Throughout our relationship, Willie consistently chose locations near his parents, whether it was for renting an apartment or selecting jobs. Since I was working remotely, location had become irrelevant to me, but Willie's decisions often meant uprooting ourselves and quitting jobs. Upon moving into his parents' home, Willie's mother warmly expressed her gratitude, saying, "Thank you for taking care of Willie all this time. From now on, I will take good care of him, Patricia. You can handle everything else." Initially, I thought this meant I'd be relieved from daily chores related to Willie, but I soon realized her intentions were different. My mother-in-law took it upon herself to cater to Willie's specific needs, preparing special meals just for him, washing and ironing only his clothes, and maintaining his belongings. Meanwhile, all other household chores, including cooking and laundry for Willie's parents and myself, became my responsibility, despite my full-time job commitments. I found myself burdened not only with managing our daily tasks, but also with maintaining the cleanliness of the larger family home. This new arrangement left me feeling disheartened. While Willie and his parents seemed content, I saw no apparent benefits for myself. My responsibilities appeared to have multiplied. During one cleaning session, my father-in-law approached me with a hesitant request. He looked apologetic as he said, "Patricia, I have a favor to ask. Could you contribute some money?" Confused, I asked him to explain further. He admitted that he found it difficult to ask Willie for financial contributions, saying that it felt challenging to request anything from him despite his hard work. This revelation added another layer of complexity to our living dynamics, highlighting the uneven distribution of both chores and financial responsibilities. Willie and I had previously agreed to share expenses like our apartment rent and other living costs. However, during our shopping trips, he often persuaded me to pay for various items, including non-essential ingredients, alcohol, clothes, and accessories. When I expressed reluctance, he reacted childishly, accusing me of being stingy. Despite these financial disagreements, I found some solace in the fact that aside from these issues, Willie didn't interfere much with my everyday life. That semblance of peace vanished when we moved in with his parents. Unlike Willie, his mother actively disrupted my routine. She constantly interrupted my work-from-home schedule, insisting that I prioritize household chores over my professional duties. She would even barge into my room and tug on my clothing, making it exceedingly difficult for me to concentrate on my tasks. I felt increasingly frustrated and overwhelmed. I raised the issue with Willie, half expecting him to side with his mother. To my surprise, he listened attentively and promised to speak with her about the interruptions. I was hopeful for a compromise that would address both our needs. However, I soon discovered that Willie's idea of a compromise differed greatly from mine. Instead of finding a way to integrate our lives, he suggested relocating me to the annex, a separate structure on their property, introducing a new level of separation rather than integration. One day, somewhat jokingly, I asked Willie if I could demolish the annex and build a new house in its place. To my astonishment, he casually replied, "You can even demolish it and build a new house if you want." His casual remark opened up unexpected possibilities for our living arrangement, hinting at a level of autonomy I hadn't anticipated. Taking Willie's words to heart, I immediately began remodeling the annex to suit my tastes. As I cleaned, renovated, and updated the wallpapers, I noticed that Willie never checked on the progress. It became clear that he had no intention of living in the remodeled annex with me. This realization hit me hard. I was the outsider in the family living dynamic. There were times when I found myself alone at home while they went out to a barbecue restaurant or when I worked late and missed communal meals. These outings, often orchestrated by Willie's mother, seemed deliberately planned to exclude me. It appeared she might have been pushing for my exclusion, perhaps hoping I would leave her son. Despite these dynamics, Willie had given me complete freedom with the annex, and I seized the opportunity to make the space truly my own. I threw myself into DIY projects, installing new shelves and personalizing every corner of the annex. Surprisingly, after I moved out, neither Willie nor his parents ever visited. They must have been aware of the renovations, yet they showed no interest in my activities, reinforcing the sense that I was no longer considered part of the family. Living away from the main house, especially without Willie's mother's constant presence, I began to relish my newfound independence. It felt almost like living alone, which was surprisingly liberating. I took comfort in the fact that residing in the annex kept her from interfering with my work. During the renovation, I even installed new locks and improved the security, marking the annex as my sanctuary away from the family dynamics. I made sure that no one, neither Willie nor his parents, could enter without my permission. This new level of privacy made me reconsider whether this separation might actually be a blessing in disguise. However, it seemed my mother-in-law sensed my growing detachment and was determined not to let me find peace easily. Unable to endure her behavior any longer, I found myself at a crossroads, contemplating my next steps. As I settled into the renovated annex, her desperation to drive me away became increasingly evident. Her subtle harassment started with minor annoyances like leaving trash in front of my cabin on garbage day instead of at the collection site. Occasionally, she would host barbecues in the garden, deliberately omitting me from the guest list while ensuring the enticing smell of grilled meat drifted my way. Despite these efforts, I remained resolute in my newfound space. I couldn't help but smile at the futility of her attempts to push me out. Then one day, she summoned me to the main house under the pretense of offering leftover meat and potatoes. Sensing there was more to her invitation, I decided to go. When I arrived, I found her alone in the living room. With a dramatic flourish, she placed a single piece of paper on the table. It was a divorce document. It was clear that her real motive was to force this paper upon me, knowing that if she instructed Willie to proceed with it, he would comply without question. All that was left was for me to agree, and Willie and I could be officially divorced by simply submitting the paper to the city court. With a smug expression, his mother declared, "Isn't it about time you gave up? There's no reason for you and Willie to stay married anymore. Get out, you freeloading, unemployed woman." I was taken aback by her audacity, but her certainty only fueled my resolve. Thrilled by the prospect of freedom, I eagerly grabbed the divorce paper and exclaimed, "I'm going to the city court right now. Thank you so much." My mother-in-law, who had likely expected me to resist, was left dumbfounded by my unexpected enthusiasm. After submitting the divorce papers at the city court, I wasted no time packing my belongings. Feeling it was necessary to inform Willie's mother about the finalized divorce, I headed to the main house to let her know that the process had been successfully completed. After I finished renovating the annex, I told my mother-in-law that I would leave it as it was and she was free to demolish it or use it as she pleased. My positive attitude about leaving seemed to surprise even her. Although she appeared pleased with my departure, she still wished me luck on my way out. On the day I left, Willie and his father, realizing that I was truly going, expressed their concern. "Are you really leaving? What will we do without Patricia?" they asked. I smiled and thanked them for letting me use the cabin. explaining that since there was no point in staying married anymore and we were now officially divorced, it was time for me to move on. As I organized my belongings, I completed my move to a luxury apartment, a change I had been planning for some time. Not long after settling into my new place, my mother-in-law called me. Her tone was awkward as she began. "Patricia." Cheerfully answering her call, I started with a light-hearted question. "What's up? How's everything going with the cabin?" She shifted to a more serious topic, mentioning finances. Specifically, she brought up that Willie had informed her he was giving his father $5,000 a month. Confirming her statement, I clarified that, contrary to her previous accusations of me being an unemployed freeloader, I was indeed gainfully employed. Her surprise was palpable over the phone. She had been under the impression that I had left my job entirely. I quickly set the record straight, explaining that I had just left my old job, but had moved on to become the president of a new company. I elaborated that I was leading the charge in pioneering a remote work system, placing myself at the forefront of modern work environments. Her reaction was a blend of disbelief and confusion, which made me sigh. It became clear that Willie was also unaware of my professional advancement, underscoring the growing distance between us, not just physically but in how we perceived each other. Since moving in with his parents, it was apparent that he had never fully embraced his role as a husband. She then asked about my earnings, curious if my new position had also boosted my income. I casually mentioned that it was approximately $3 million. Admittedly, this figure was an exaggeration, a simplification to avoid delving into the complexities of my actual earnings. Seizing on this, she shifted the conversation, asking if I could lend them some money. She revealed that Willie's father had been laid off and had kept it hidden. They had been managing with the $5,000 I'd been providing, and neither Willie nor I had known about his job loss. This revelation clarified a previous conversation with my father-in-law, where he had mentioned how uncomfortable it was to ask his son for money. I now understood that his earlier words had been a facade, likely a strategy to elicit financial support from me, banking on the assumption that my superior position implied substantial wealth. While this maneuver was cunning, it provided a clearer picture of the financial dynamics within Willie's family and their expectations of me. At our former company, they had subtly maneuvered to extract $5,000 a month from me under the guise of shared expenses. In hindsight, I didn't mind much at the time because it allowed me to live peacefully in the quiet cabin. However, now that I was divorced from Willie, I saw no reason to stay connected to his family. When I mentioned this disconnect, my mother-in-law urgently pleaded, "That's not true. To me and Willie, you're still family. Please come back to us." I immediately declined, fully aware of the potential for further exploitation. Re-entering a relationship with Willie offered no benefits, and it felt uncomfortable for them to still claim me as family, especially since they had been the ones to push me out. I'm truly enjoying my life on my own now. It feels similar to when I was married, mostly living alone. But the difference is that I now spend money on myself without the $5,000 being siphoned off each month. I much prefer my current life with a firm goodbye. I ended the call without hesitation, puzzled as to why they thought I would ever return. For my mother-in-law, it must have been a last-ditch effort. In reality, Willie's salary was unimpressive, and he consistently avoided responsibilities, often saying, "I can't do it," and passing tasks to others. This trait, prevalent in both our personal and professional lives, rendered him unreliable and stagnant in his career. With his father laid off and his mother a housewife, they struggled to maintain their large house and eventually had to sell it. Now, all three of them are living in the cabin I renovated. While it's perfect for one person, it must be quite cramped and uncomfortable for three. Since then, I haven't given them much thought, continuing to live peacefully and savor the solitude and freedom of my new independence.